Hey there, if you're a caregiver, you know that feeling, that moment when you're pushed to your absolute limit. It's overwhelming. But what if you could actually stop it before it even begins? Well, today we're going to break down a really practical, science-backed way to prevent those caregiver meltdowns. So let's dive right in. And this quote, it really hits home, doesn't it? Because that's the thing about meltdowns. They almost never start with a shout. They begin so quietly, right? It's that held breath, the tight jaw. That little voice in your head saying, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's just this slow burn, building and building, until one tiny, insignificant thing makes the whole thing just explode.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, let's walk through a story that I bet is going to feel pretty familiar to some of you. We're going to talk about a caregiver, let's call her Mrs. J, and the exact moment she hit her tipping point. So just picture her day for a second. First, the kitchen sink backs up. A total pain. But okay, she deals with it. Then her mother-in-law refuses to take her medication, which is this whole emotionally draining battle. But she keeps it together, she stays patient, and then, just as she's trying to get dinner on the table, the phone rings. And that's it. That's the moment. She snaps, yells, slams the phone down, and then, of course, that immediate wave of guilt just washes over her. And this right here, this is the million-dollar question. I mean, think about it. The sink, the medication drama, those were way bigger problems, right? So why in the world was it a simple phone call that made her snap? Well, the answer isn't what you might think. It has nothing to do with willpower or not being resilient enough. It's actually all about science. So this is where we need to completely reframe how we look at this problem. This isn't about just gritting your teeth and trying to be tougher. It's about prevention. It's about realizing that the final straw, the thing that makes you snap, it's never the real reason. The real reason is something in behavioral science called an antecedent.
Okay, so what is an antecedent? It's not the big dramatic disaster. It's all the little things that build up. It's the environment, the feeling in the room right before the behavior happens. So for Mrs. J, the real antecedents weren't the sink or the medication fight. Nope. It was that feeling of being rushed, that feeling of chaos just building in the house. The phone call, that was just the spark that lit a fuse that was already there.
And this whole process, it creates this really nasty, vicious cycle. It's called the ABC stress loop. It goes like this. A is for antecedent. That's the buildup of all the little stressors. That leads to B for behavior, which is the outburst, or maybe you just shut down. And that leads to C for consequence. The guilt, the exhaustion, which just feeds more stress into the system for next time. See the loop? The only way to break it is to stop it at the very beginning, at A. All right, so step 1. You have to become a detective of your own stress. Seriously, your job is to figure out what your personal tipping point antecedents are. What are those specific cues in your environment that always seem to happen right before you feel like you're going to lose it? Just think about it for a second. What's going on in the 30 seconds right before that frustration starts to bubble up? And your triggers probably fall into one of 3 main buckets. Is it sensory overload? Just too much noise, too much clutter everywhere? Or maybe it's temporal stress, that feeling of being constantly rushed, always being interrupted. Or, and this is a big one, is it a physical deficit? You're just plain tired. You're hungry. Maybe you haven't had any water. Figuring out which one of these is your main go-to is absolutely the key to getting back in the driver's seat. Which brings us to step 2. Once you know your triggers, the trick isn't to fight them with more willpower. Nope. You neutralize them with something we're going to call a preemptive strike. It's exactly what it sounds like. You strategically change your environment to disarm the trigger before it can even go off. And look, these preemptive strikes can be so simple. For example, if sensory overload is your thing, maybe you set up a non-negotiable quiet hour. No TV, no phone calls that aren't emergencies. You're creating a new antecedent, one for calm. If it's temporal stress, try creating a behavioral barrier. Like put your phone in a different room when you need to focus on something, like getting meds ready. Boom, no interruptions, no trigger. And for a physical deficit, this is so easy. Just put a water bottle and some snacks right where you can see them. It's a visual reminder to take care of yourself before you're running on fumes. Okay, but let's be real. What happens when you do all this stuff and you still feel that stress starting to creep up? For those moments, you need an emergency tool. You need to build yourself an in-the-moment pause button that can stop that stress cycle dead in its tracks. And this grounding technique, this is your pause button. The second you feel that jaw clench or your heart starts to race, just stop and engage your senses. You're going to mentally name 5 things you can see around you. Then,
4 things you can physically feel, like your feet on the floor or the fabric of your shirt. Then 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and finally 1 thing you can taste. It sounds so simple, but what this does is it yanks your brain out of that emotional spiral and plants it right back in the present moment. And what you do right after you pause is just as crucial. After you do that little exercise, you have to reinforce it. Just say out loud, even if it's a whisper, "I took my breath. I'm in charge." It feels a little weird at first, but that small act cements that feeling of control and actually helps rewire your brain's response to stress. Now, I can already hear what some of you are thinking. Okay, this sounds great in theory, but can I really do this? Like, in the heat of the moment, can I actually train myself to pause instead of just reacting? And the answer is 100% yes, absolutely. Think of it like you're building a muscle at the gym. Every single time you successfully hit that pause button, you are literally carving a new pathway in your brain. You're teaching it a new default setting, and that setting is calm. It's all about consistency. Okay, but what about the other big objection? Time, right? When things are completely chaotic, who has time to stop and name 5 things they see? And that is a totally fair question. And this might be the most important thing to remember from all of this. The goal here is interruption, not perfection. You don't have to do the whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. If all you can manage in that moment is to stop and take one single, deep, intentional breath, that counts. That is a huge win. That is you right there breaking the chain. So I want to leave you with this really powerful idea. This whole system we talked about, finding your triggers, changing your environment, building that pause button, none of this is a luxury. It's not self-indulgence. It is the essential infrastructure, the foundation that lets you be the calm, the compassionate, and the effective caregiver that you really truly want to be. So I'll just leave you with this one question. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just ask yourself, what is one small pause you can practice today? Is it putting your phone in another room for just 10 minutes? Is it just taking that one single deep breath? Whatever it is, start there.